I got some bad news for you, and this is going to really tick you off and motivate you to get your friends out to vote. Yesterday, Ford Motor Company sent out notices to all their workers at the Dearborn Ford pickup truck, the Lightning, 100% electric vehicle. They laid everybody off till next year.
Breaking news as Ford issues a dramatic warning about the state of the economy, consumer spending, and their company as dollar debasement, which is inflation. Remember that, you guys. Instead of inflation, we say dollar debasement is tearing through our economy and consumer balance sheets, as evident in the fact that Rite Aid has just announced bankruptcy yet again. This is the second time in less than 2 years as they lose their footing on any possibility of recovery. Now, our ending segment today is going to be on how landlords are absolutely panicking right now as the White House prepares to end vouchers as the entire housing market continues to unravel. So today we're going to ask and answer questions like what's really happening at Ford? Is this finally the end of Rite Aid? And how screwed exactly are landlords? But first, happy Tuesday and welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. This video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Mitch Vexler, how are you, sir?
It's a very unfortunate set of circumstances when that amount of people at any corporation get laid off. But we're going to get into that as to what that really means. And unfortunately, it does tie back to the school districts, and it ties back to the central appraisal districts that are both committing fraud on society.
This article is titled, Ford Puts a Number on Its Profit Hit from Trump's Tariff and halts all guidance. Ford Motor on late Monday pulled its 2025 guidance, citing significant near-term risk. Again, you guys, significant near-term risk, and said it expects a tariff of about $1.4 billion for the year as U.S. automakers continue to grapple with economic uncertainty and as consumers shy away from big ticket expenses. But the thing is they're not shying away from it. It's just most people that don't care about what's going on can't afford it anymore. They don't have the money to buy it. They would still make a foolish decision because they're indoctrinated to, but they're not buying it because the price is too high. Ford listed 4 material reasons it was pulling the year's outlook. Okay, so 4 reasons, saying it sees potential for an industry-wide supply chain disruption, which would hurt production, for additional or increased tariffs in the US, for changes in tariff implementation, including the possibility that countries would enact their own retaliatory tariffs and other restrictions, and ongoing policy uncertainty around tax and emissions policies. There are substantial industry risks which could have significant impacts on financial results and that make updating full-year guidance challenging now given the potential range of outcomes. Interesting. The carmaker said it will update Wall Street on guidance when it reports second quarter earnings this summer. This is a really important point to understand so you guys don't get caught up on the nonsense that the media is spewing. Even without tariffs, and remember the title of this article, even without tariffs, Ford faces and has been facing significant operational and market-related headwinds and has lost significant market share in the U.S. over the past several years. It's not just Ford. So Ford has a $1.5 billion profit hit. They're saying, right? They're nonsense saying because of the tariffs, but that's shy of General Motors' estimate of between 4.5 and $5 billion. So it is an industry-wide challenge that they are facing. In a pair of proclamations last week, the Trump administration laid out a plan that sought to give automakers some tariff relief, including offsets linked to auto part tariffs. Ford said that their estimates actually include these rebates already. The administration also clarified that there would be no tariff stacking. The 25% auto tariffs went into effect on Saturday. So how could their first quarter decline be a result of tariffs? But car makers can get rebates on those up to an amount equivalent to 3.75% of the value of US-made car for 1 year. That offset falls to 2.5% of the car's value in the second year, and it will then be phased out. So they get some relief. That's more than you and I get. Mitch, one thing that consumers are starting to realize without you and I pointing this out, because they're just sick and tired of this, is the media lies to people. Politicians lie to people. Officials lie to people. In fact, it's actually a massive rarity when you have someone that's an official that has enough courage and tenacity, takes both courage and tenacity to speak transparently with honesty. I mean, I don't even know if that exists. In other words, consumers aren't getting the real picture. They're confused. A lot of them are afraid. Can you break down what's happening at Ford? And can you explain to the viewers whether or not it is a result of these tariffs, or is this a result of the dollar debasement, which again is inflation?
A result of, yes, the inflation, yes, the purchasing power of the dollar going down, yes, the debts continue, but there's so many problems here because it's a complex issue, but let me try and break it down. First of all, that's a lot of people that are going to get laid off. We'll argue in a minute about why, but let's just go with the fact that debts still exist. School district debts still exist. Those people that got laid off are expected to pay money that they don't have. So you have the school district, by virtue of the CADs, which are relying on their overvaluation and overtaxation, to hand that money off to the school districts. The debts didn't go down. Those people lost their jobs. Then we can discuss, well, why? Well, Ford is really no different than Mercedes, General Motors, or any other company. They have executives, and the executives screwed up. They went down a rabbit trail of, well, we think we should be in the electric vehicle business. Whether they're right or they're wrong is not what the issue is. The issue is they're easily proven wrong because the vast majority of people didn't want the electric vehicles. They chose Tesla, and that's been proven out, right? Tesla's the big manufacturer of these vehicles. So the truth is that the CEOs and the boards screwed up. But it gets a little bit more complicated because they'll try to cover it up and say, well, we can stuff the channels with these vehicles. So they play a game of front running, basically is what it is. We'll produce these vehicles and we'll stuff them into the channel of the dealerships. And we say, well, we're manufacturing X amount. Look at all this production that we've done. When in truth, they're channel stuffing. That's the key words, channel stuffing. Then they use that channel stuffing and hand those theories, because that's what it is. It's a theory, it's a guesstimate. Well, we produced, we shoved it into a channel, but now we're going to state to the government we're producing X amount, and that skews the numbers. Well, then we also have the interest buy downs. So they'll play games with pricing and say, okay, we'll increase the price a little bit, but then we'll back off the price and we'll give people 0% financing or 3% financing, whatever it happens to be. That's all part of the game. The problem is the public is completely unaware as to what the game is and how they're being manipulated. I have no issues with Ford in terms of the production of their vehicles, et cetera. But the truth is the amount of manipulation, both at the federal level and the state level, by lying on the production numbers that are channel stuffed is what causes these problems. Then it gets more complicated when you have this amount of layoffs. And Travis did a video a couple months ago. I believe that property was in Ohio, showing what happens in a geographic vicinity when that amount of people get laid off. There's no words to describe how devastating it is because you can never catch up on the payments of these debts that were fraudulently created to begin with. So the bottom line is, if people understood what was happening, it would not be allowed to happen. The politicians would have been thrown out of the office for this type of nonsense. This should not be allowed to happen. This is illegal. It's not that the layoffs are illegal. It's all the activities around the layoffs, which are the school district bond fraud and the central appraisal district property tax fraud. Those debts keep mounting and they cannot be paid off. There's no math on the planet to back it up. That's why this is a problem. That's why this has to be handled at a federal level. And by the way, it's not just Ford. Mercedes is in the exact same problem in Germany. In other words, two separate countries, the exact same issues.
Yep.
Like you can buy a Mercedes S550 right now for 60 cents on the dollar if it's 1.5 years old. Nobody wants this crap.
Mitch, I do have an issue with Ford personally. I'm not a rich person. I've already lost everything one time, and that really hurt me. It made me stronger, but it was because of the pain, right? It makes you stronger. But I've already bailed out Ford one time in my life. Okay, through the global financial crisis. They're in the same situation. They're hiring people, they're firing people. It seems like they're just taking taxpayers' money and wasting it. Am I wrong to think that? Because again, it seems like no matter how much bailing out, no matter how much they take of my unborn grandchildren's money, their future salary, they're still 1/4 away from it all melting down and going bankrupt. Why is this an apathy thing? I mean, how do they keep getting bailed out here? I mean, they got their they waived their tariffs. They're producing stuff out of the country, not giving us American jobs. Is Ford, let me ask you this question. Is Ford more of a hybrid American company? We can't really say that Ford is an American company, being that they don't produce all their cars in America and the parts in America. Can we?
When I said that, I meant as far as the product is concerned. I agree 100% on the bailouts. That should never be allowed to happen. If you cannot bail out the banks and then turn around and say, well, we can't bail out the auto business. That's part of the problem. At some point, these politicians have got to stand up and say, that's it, no bailouts, you're on your own. Because that is what has created the problem that you're referring to, right? That's selective enforcement. And that's what leads to these problems. So the selective enforcement is what Ford, in essence, has gone out and subbed out General Motors. They all manufacture around the globe. They manufacture in Mexico, as another example. So these things are all connected at the hip because the politicians never stopped it because they never understood the math in the first place. I am a big fan of the Mustang, always have been. Love Ford, love the Ford 150s. But in terms of financing, this is a problem at the C-suite. This is a CEO problem. It has been for multiple CEOs. This is a board of directors problem. It has been in multiple companies. They come up with these ideas while the public wants X. If we build it, they will come. No, here's an idea, do a survey, come up with a model and do some actual work to determine if the public really wants it. You went down the rabbit trail. GM did it with the Volt. The Volt is a piece of garbage. It was from its inception to this day. It's useless. Nobody wants it. Yet who subsidizes it? Well, the taxpayers do because GM holds its hand out and says, we need more money to help support this electric cause. Okay, It hasn't worked anywhere on the planet. Nobody wants it. Tesla is the winner. Get over it.
Well, I think we should all be sick and tired of paying for their failures. I'm going to move on with Mitch, and let's talk about Rite Aid. Before I go into Rite Aid, I want to play for the viewers, a young woman, once again, that was completely bamboozled. She bamboozled, herself a little bit as well, and she got fired, and she is completely in shock. We'll listen to this, and then we're going to go into Rite Aid.
I am actually speechless. So I just got laid off from my job. I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe it. I actually cannot believe that this is happening to me. That was actually the weirdest experience of my life. Tell me why I wake up and thank God I woke up early because, I see a meeting called Team Update with my director and 2 other people in it. And as soon as I saw it, my stomach dropped. And I was like, there's no way. My first thought is, there's no way this is happening to me.
Surprise, surprise. That's what happens when you don't listen and you don't prepare for the storm that has been coming at us for a long time now. That is exactly what happens. It's always better to prepare for the worst. You can hope for the best, that's fine, but prepare for the worst so that when it happens, you are well hedged. Rite Aid files for bankruptcy for the second time, you guys, in 18 months. Rite Aid on Monday announced it is filing for bankruptcy and looking for a new buyer just 7 months after exiting Chapter 13. I wonder how much money they got from the taxpayers. I'm not 100% sure. 18 months ago, Rite Aid first filed for bankruptcy in October of 2023 because it couldn't compete against bigger chains, and that's a huge change already, and paid millions for filing unlawful opioid prescriptions. The company plans to cut open its 1,350 stores in 15 states with 4,000 employees. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I went to Rite Aid all the time and I purchased some of that candy. For more than 60 years, Rite Aid has been proud provider of pharmacy services and products to their loyal customers, they say. While we have continued to face financial challenges, they're not talking about tariffs, wink, wink, intensified by the rapidly evolving retail and healthcare landscapes in which we operate, we are encouraged by meaningful interest from a number of potential national and regional strategic acquirers. As we move forward, our key priorities are ensuring uninterrupted pharmacy services for our customers and preserving jobs for many of our associates as possible. That's nice of them to speak, but their actions say something different. Now, interestingly enough, Rite Aid did secure a $1.9 billion in new financing along with cash from operations and is expected to provide sufficient funding during the sale and court supervised process. Good. Oh, so they got almost $2 billion to go bankrupt? Sounds like a smart investment, whoever gave them that money. The company intends to divest or monetize any assets, which they probably have none. Also, you guys don't forget this. Walgreens also announced in March that it was going private in a deal valued up to $24 billion. And also CVS has closed more than 1,000 stores and undergone thousands of layoffs. You know, Mitch, speaking of wasted money, is, what do you think, man? I mean, do you think it's worth trying to save Rite Aid, or do you think that this is finally the end of Rite Aid and that they need to kick rocks?
So what does Rite Aid, Ford, General Motors, Mercedes, KTM Motorcycles, and Joanne Fabrics all have in common? The answer is debt load. The greater the debt load, the higher the probabilities of absolute failure, catastrophic failure. Unfortunately, the auto business is an extremely difficult business with lots of inputs, just like Boeing. The more the inputs, the higher the probability of problems. And it takes an awful lot in today's world to produce a good car or a good truck. The point of the matter is they've got extreme pressures. So it's the combination of all these elements that they have with their employee problems, global problems, supply chain problems. But one must stand back and understand that the root of all their problems is in fact debt, because these entities grew for the purpose of trying to cover off the debt that they had already created. In essence, internally, they created their own mini Ponzi scheme. We have to grow bigger in order to pay off the existing debt, rather than looking at the business itself and saying, what can this entity of the business, i.e. separate out the Mustang line, i.e. you separate out the Ford 150 line, i.e. you would separate out into separate departments if you want to take a run at an electric pickup. Okay, that's your business if that's what you want to do, but what is the revenue generated for that individual line of business as compared to the entirety of the company? So it is the CEOs and the board's fault for failing to separate this out and insisting we have to have the growth for the sake of growth to cover off the existing debt. It became delusional. We're going to grow bigger. We're going to channel stuff, all this stuff. And in essence, they're lying to the public. And now you're starting to see the wheels come off, figuratively and literally, because they didn't tell the truth and the cat's out of the bag that the money's not there to pay off the debts.
Well, Mitch, if debt load is, and I would agree, is one of the biggest challenges that these companies are facing, and they just got another $1.9 billion, do you think that they're going to recover? Will there be a Rite Aid this time next year?
The reason why Walgreens has done a reverse merger and gone private is because they may very well be in a position to pick off the bones of Rite Aid. Which brings the question of, is Rite Aid even worth saving? And again, there's been an awful lot of manipulation on both sides. It's not just the debt load of the company, but when the governments get involved and say, well, you can only use a certain portion of the underlying insurance from somebody, and they build these pharmacies based on it, and then the government changes plans, well, all of a sudden, the company's now getting hurt. So there's manipulation going on all over the place. But you could withstand the manipulation if you didn't have the debt loads. If you had 30% debt as compared to, we're levered to the eyeballs to the tune of 105% or greater in terms of the price to earnings ratio. That is really what the problem is. They can't handle the debt.
Yeah. Are they going to make it? What do you think?
No.
You don't think so?
The problem is under its current debt load, unless there's some sort of major, well, we are going to forgive the debt in terms of their bondholders and their shareholders in order to recast this thing. But that's highly unlikely because remember, this is not the first time that they've gone bankrupt.
Yeah. They would have done it already if that was a viable solution. So we can only imagine what is under the hood there. I'm sure it's not looking pretty.
Well,
obviously, it's not. They wouldn't go bankrupt twice in less than 2 years if it was.
It's a problem, and the federal bankruptcy judge will have to deal with it. But my gut instinct is, based on what I was reading, no. Or it's going to be an absolute mere size, 7 or 8% of its current size when all said and done.
Well, if you fail, you fail. I mean, it's not, they shouldn't have some special superhero power that they could just continue to fail and nothing happens to them. Either way, Mitch.
The problem is you end up with lack of competition, and because you end up with Walgreens as being the big kahuna, but even small mom and pop pharmacists are having an extremely difficult time in this environment. They can't make it work.
Well, I mean, their medications don't work either. I mean, I don't want to go there, but how many of our children are high on prescription medication as well as our adult population? Don't answer that. Just something to think about. I want to move on. I'm going to go into the White House. This is crazy. I want to go into the White House and what they're doing because landlords right now are freaking the flip out. This came out from Housing Wire yesterday, titled White House Proposes Elimination of Section 8 Housing Vouchers. The potential elimination of Section 8 housing vouchers and roughly 40% cuts to rental assistance were included in a recent White House request to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or rather HUD. The cuts, first reported by NPR, target core HUD programs like Section 8 vouchers, replacing them with block grants to states. The White House described the current system as dysfunctional and said that the states should be allowed to design their own rental assistance programs based on their unique needs and performances instead of a blanket fraudulent plan that exists right now. The plan would also cap rental aid for able-bodied adults at 2 years, reallocating any remaining funds towards elderly and displaced recipients. However, experts warn of housing crisis. Housing advocates say that proposed cuts could cause a dramatic increase in homelessness from the landlords. Kim Johnson of the National Low Income Housing Coalition told NPR that she thinks homelessness escalates in a way that has been really unprecedented and unheard of. I don't think she's been to Skid Row, but it is what it is. Cutting that really feels like cutting into the bone, shifting burden to states. Under the proposal, states would have more discretion over how federal housing funds are used, but less money to work with. I like that. So use the money that you do get very effectively. NPR noted that similar block grant programs such as welfare have often been redirected away from direct aid. States could theoretically supplement the lost federal funding with their own resources, but advocates are skeptical. Federal budget proposes more cuts. The newly released federal budget proposed also calls for eliminating programs that support affordable housing development because they don't exist. These programs, and Mitch has talked about this, these affordable housing programs make it more expensive for the developers to build. They're not affordable. They're more expensive programs. The administration argues that these funds have been misused, citing projects like skate parks and concert plazas. You don't need a concert plaza and a skate park in an affordable housing development, guys. Before we talk about how landlords are potentially screwed, I'm going to show you a video of a motorcycle home. So this woman is homeless, but look at her motorcycle house. So it's raining, right? Look at this little tiny motorcycle car thing. Look at the handlebars. Oh, it's crazy, man. I want to put it on mute so we can talk. I mean, look at that thing, man. Look at what she's about to turn this into a living room and then a bedroom. And I was like, there's no way, right? She can't even fit in this thing. It's raining. So, I mean, look at, she puts the thing down, the table comes out. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe this is the future of housing right here. I mean, maybe this is a solution to affordable housing. Instead of Section 8, we have Section motorcycle car. And people get to buy a motorcycle car and zip around in this. I mean, look, she's got her stuffed animals, Mitch. She's got curtains. She's got 5 lights in there. How many lights do you need? It's a 5x5 box. She got the curtains, you know. I mean, she goes on. And I was like, there's no way that she could lay her legs out, right? But that table right there slides to her chair and the entire cart becomes a bed. It's really quite incredible. I mean, look at her stuffed animals. I mean, you know, not only is it incredible, it's also incredibly sad that the condition of our economy across the world is so expensive that young men and women, they have to completely redefine their goals because home ownership is out of reach for them. And unfortunately, a lot of these younger adults, instead of choosing to save their money and eventually become a homeowner and maybe wait this out, they're buying a $100,000 F-350 instead, or a motorcycle home. So I guess, Mitch, you know, going back to Section 8, and if you want to touch on that motorcycle home, feel free to, but can you explain how screwed landlords really are, especially the landlords that purchased homes based on Section 8 and that being taken away from them? How screwed are these people really?
It's not just the houses where Section 8 tenants exist. It's in multifamily on an extremely large scale where Section 8 housing exists. Unfortunately, the system has existed for so long, the Section 8 checks, it has skewed the purchase price of multifamily. In order to get a rate of return, Section 8 housing vouchers checks go up. And then that becomes a circular argument. Well, if the checks go up, then the value of the property must go up. And they've created a system that will implode, unfortunately. There's no way to fix this. So if you look at it and say, okay, I have 300 units. Out of my 300 units, I get 130 of them are Section 8 housing. That's over 30%. If that 30% goes away and you think that the state is going to come in and rescue and swap dollar for dollar, you would be wrong. That isn't going to happen because they don't have the money either. So the problem here is that the government, you could say, well, we have a policy, we want to help everybody. But every time the government steps up, we're the government, we're here to help, it has the exact opposite effect. It really should be we're the government, we're here to help the government, not the citizens. And there's a difference between a social policy and socialism. Well, when the government says we're going to write checks to help those people who can't afford this multifamily, they cause that actual multifamily unit to rise in price. It's the interference by the government. And we did a video a couple of days ago where I broke down the 221D4, my experience with it. 221D4 product, I can build for 15 to 20% less than what the 221D4 program can build for B- property. I'm Class A, and I can build at 15 to 20% less than the 221D4. You have the exact same circumstance happening in the Section 8. It is the interference of the government that causes these valuations to rise. So it's a circular argument. It skews the numbers. And the only solution, unfortunately, is the complete annihilation of that system, because it's not a real system. It's not an economic system. It's a wish list. And when you start pumping money into a wish list, you are now seeing the ramifications where the federal government says, yeah, no more, we're not touching this. Now it's on the shoulders of the states. The states don't have the money. And we know that because your tax dollars end up paying for it and you don't have the tax dollars to pay for it.
Well said. You know, one last thing, guys, before we end this video, you know, like Mitch was alluding to, if you want to help us, because Mitch and I are trying, and we're trying so hard, so many different things. If you want to destroy the system, which is what we're trying to do, if you're sick of the greed, if you're sick of the fraud, if you're sick of the decades of corruption, then you must take action. Now, Mitch and I have made that easier for you. And all I'm asking you guys to do is just give this a shot, which is the step-by-step, 6 different steps on how to fill out the short version of the criminal complaint. You guys that were watching my live video know that I turned this in yesterday in Houston. In fact, I have a special folder. If you live in Houston, your job's already done. I've made all the exhibits for you. All you have to do is put your name and put your address, and you march that sucker into the DA's office, and you help us destroy the system that has created a situation to where millions of Americans are now stuck in poverty. So I hope you guys will take me up on that. Other than that, guys, if you're out there investing in your life, investing in your community, investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck, and we hope you win.